The Bible says in the book of James that religion that is pure and undefiled before the Lord is to care for orphans and widows in their need. And across Park, this is exactly what we've seen take place. I'm so proud to be part of a church where in our South Rogers Park location last year was able to launch an entire service specifically in a senior retirement center to care for many widows in our city. This is part of a whole life movement, as Dan has kind of said before, to care for the fullness of the human life.
Really, all throughout Park, what we're seeing right now is this incredible movement of the Spirit of God to stir up involvement as we care for orphans in our city and across the world. We have seen it in the lives of some of our leaders and families all across Park Community Church.
The reality that we face is that everyone can do something. There's something that each person in the church is called to do to be part of what God's doing.
The call to care for the orphan, the vulnerable in society, is not something that any of us can just say, hey, that's not what I'm called to do. But actually, all of us can play a part at this.
We have 3 kids of our own, and I think the basic idea is that we've been blessed with 3. We'd love to bless someone else and adopt with our 4th. And as we were kind of started thinking through that and praying through that, we came across a stat that there's 19,000 kids in foster care in the state of Illinois.
At that time.
At that time, yeah.
We sort of looked around at like what God had given us and what we had in our life. We had a minivan that had an extra seat. We had a house that had an extra bed. We had a table that had an extra chair. Just from a practical standpoint, what could we do with this?
Seat. I remember thinking about our van, there was a 4th seat.
And it ended up to be foster care.
We've had a tough journey, but our church family has been there for us in so many ways. The day we found out we got to adopt, one of the first calls we made after our family was to Rafe and Sarah. I'm excited to see her start kindergarten, but then it's like you think, I'm gonna see her off to college, I'm gonna see her get married.
We hosted a Safe Families Symposium. The main purpose of the symposium was to spread awareness about safe families and what it really is. Foster care is not allowed to take in children unless they have experienced neglect or abuse. However, many parents are going through smaller issues like job loss or sometimes addiction. The host families take in the child for anywhere from a couple days to at most a couple of months, and they care for the child as if they were their family. The host families also come alongside the biological parent and support them, and as this is a Christian organization, they also teach them where hope is coming from.
One of the sweetest places to be as a church is when the Spirit of God is so evidently clearly moving, and we now as a church are trying to come alongside and equip our people to boldly step in where God's been leading us. Last year, as the financial year came to a close, by God's grace and by your generosity, some of the locations were in a place where they had an excess of what had been received from the offering. And we knew God was calling us to do something with it, to love boldly with it. And then we looked out and we saw what the Spirit of God was already doing. He was already pushing our people into adoption and foster care. And so we were in this position where he said, what if we put aside this money to finance much of the adoption work that is still to come in the future of Park Community Church? Adoption, whether you go domestically or internationally, can range anywhere from $30,000 up to $60,000, depending on many different factors. This fund is being set up for Park to come alongside willing adoptive parents and say, as a church, we believe in this so much, we don't want finances to be something that stops you from becoming an adoptive parent.
Really, our desire is that at the end of the day, we would be able to see many stories at each of our locations of adoption, and as a church be able to say, hey, we have each individually, through our generosity, we've played a small part in making that happen and continuing the work of adoption through Park Community Church.
Those who are members of Park Community Church, who have been in there for at least 1 year, and are going to be eligible to receive financial help towards their adoption.
There is an incredible need for us to be able to roll up our sleeves. I was just having a conversation with one organization. They said they currently have no families who are ready to take in infants.
Now is the time to get certified. Now is the time to ask God, what is your role?
We believe that God is still at work at Park Community Church and calling us to more involvement as we care for orphans in our city and across the world.
Much of the story of what God is writing here at Park Community Church, of seeing a movement of the Spirit of adoption, foster care, is still to be written.
If you'd like more information about what your best next step could be, visit our website or talk to your location pastor.